Hi friends, welcome to day 4 of the stitch along. Today we are going to be working on 1/2 of the outline of the banner. It doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom. I'll probably just start at the bottom just because that's what I did the first time I did it, and I'm just going to stick with what I've done. And so we're going to be using ECRU again, 3 strands, and we're going to be doing a back split stitch. So let's get stitching. Alright, so one of the first things I'd like to point out is that with this back split stitch, I like to just kind of follow the natural lines that there are. So for example, I'm going to start right here and I'm just going to follow this line as it naturally goes around and around, and then I will follow it around this curve and up here and just keep going until I feel like it comes to a naturally stopping point, and then I will tie it off and then start again at another portion. Alright, so let's get started with our back split stitch. Starting here, I'm going to pull my needle all the way through and make about 1.5 stitches length forward. So a stitch length, this is kind of varies person to person. A stitch length is typically about to here, roughly. So I want to go a little bit further for this very first stitch. So I'm going about 1.5 stitches. I'm going a little before those stems. Now I'm going to come up 1/2 stitch length forward. Ooh. You know what? I don't like where I came up at. I'm going to take that out. Let's do it again. I could tell it's a little too high and I don't like that. Alright, try that again. Go below just a little bit of where I was at. Okay, but we're still just 1/2 stitch length forward from that previous stitch. Okay, and we're going to split right in the middle of that last stitch, both horizontally and vertically. So I want to go about halfway between the stitch here, and I want to try and split those 3 strands as best as I can. Obviously, you can't split 3 perfectly. And then pull it through. And we're just going to do the same thing. Go 1/2 stitch length forward, split right in the middle of the previous stitch. And there's a little bit of wiggle room with this. If you need to go a little more than 1/2 stitch length forward, if you need to go a little less, that is perfectly fine. Just adjust based on how far you go into the previous stitch so that your stitches look consistent. Now when you get to edges like this, you're just going to kind of like start and stop again of what you were doing. You're not going to worry about splitting the previous stitch, but you're not going to tie off your floss either. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to do one last stitch on this top line. And then I'm going to go just down here, about 1.5 stitches length forward, kind of like what we did with our very first stitch up here. And I'm going to bring it and meet all the way up here. I'm not going to necessarily go into this stitch, but I am going to try and go into the same hole that this one originally went down. So that way they're meeting perfectly. Now 1/2 stitch length forward and split the previous stitch. So we're just doing that over and over again. It's pretty simple. Okay, I'm going to get to the end of this, and then I'm going to speed up a little bit, and I'll talk to you as we get closer to these satin stitches. So as we approach this corner, there's one of two things you can do. You can either kind of follow it and go straight up right here, or you can make a sharper turn with your stitch and go this way and go up. I think what I'm going to do, which might have been different than what I said at the start of this, is I think I'm going to go straight up and stop right there. And then we can pick up at another spot and keep stitching. And that's all you really want to do as you outline this border, is just kind of follow where the lines naturally take you. And there's really no right or wrong way to do it. There might be a slightly more difficult way to do it, but there won't be a wrong way. As you come around corners, your stitches will get maybe a little bit smaller because you got to make room for those curves, but you're still doing the same thing as your stitching. And if your floss gets like this, like kind of nodding in on itself, sometimes it means you've been stitching a little too fast. And if you just hold your floss kind of like this on the edge, it will unravel. Sometimes it just kind of gets all tangled up. Now, as I get closer to these satin stitches, you do want to try and get as close to them as possible so that it's a very seamless look between the filler and the outline. But as you do that, just make sure that you're not accidentally pulling any of the stitches. Maybe try to get your needle right in between some of those satin stitches versus right on the same hole. All right, so from here, what I can do is either come down here and start stitching this direction, or I could, I don't know, pick up and start all the way over here if I wanted to and follow this line down. The amount of how much you stitch today is kind of up to you. Just get to about a good halfway point and then you can come back tomorrow and finish. Or if you really want to be super ambitious, just go ahead and do the whole thing today. So I think what I'm going to do right now is come down here and stitch up this direction and come across and go over here. And then the rest of this is just going to be sped up while I do that. All right, so that's where I'm going to end today just because I ran out of floss. But finish about what you would say is halfway of this banner and then come back tomorrow and we will finish the banner together. See you tomorrow.